It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
Welcome to Declare Your Independence with me, Ernest Hancock, here in Phoenix, Arizona, from the beautiful studios of Freedoms with an S, freedomsphoenix.com. Now, we got scheduled today, we're going to have Robert Prechter come on from Elliott Wave. Now, Elliott Wave is, Sierra's getting him on right now. What I want to do is I want to make sure that you have an understanding of what this means. And how now's a good time to have Robert Prechter come on because he's been predicting that there's going to be deflation in a lot of ways. And we're going to talk about that because I think we're right on the edge of it. Here we go. So we want to have Bob Prechter on to tell us about it before it happens so he gets all the street cred. I got you there, Bob?
You got me. How you doing, Ernie?
I'm doing good, man. It's good to talk to you. Go ahead and give the audience a quickie on Elliott Wave and what you guys do over there. It's ELLIOTT. ElliottWave.com. Now, go ahead and, if I got that right, let's go ahead and make sure we get your website out. Go ahead and give it out.
No, that's correct. ElliottWave.com. 2 L's and 2 T's in Elliott, Wave as on the ocean.com.
Go ahead and explain to people what we've been talking to you for, 5, 6, 7 years, and, it's always when it's unexpected that Bob's right. So let's go ahead and talk about the Elliott Wave, and then how you think
about right. Yeah, people are always, it's always unexpected when I'm right, because I do make a lot of mistakes, too. But it's always a pleasant surprise, right, Ernie?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, sometimes it's an unpleasant surprise for some people. Look, the wave principle is simply a model of the way financial prices move. And R.N. Elliott, I would use the word discovered this back in the 1930s. He was an accountant. He studied the stock market, and he found that the patterns that he saw on the very short term, he kept an hourly chart. He, of course, has daily charts from the journal and stuff like that, all the way up to annual bar charts going back to the mid-1800s. And he said, I keep seeing the same patterns at all degrees. He was the first person to realize that stock prices move in the form of what we now call a fractal, where the irregularities are the same at all degrees of scale. But in his case, he found that the smaller patterns were building blocks of the larger ones, so they're self-similar fractal. What does that mean? It means that the news is not buffeting the market around despite what everybody thinks. Human psychology is patterned. People are herding toward the upside. They're herding back to the downside. And these changes in mood that people are sharing and causing them to buy stocks and sell stocks and then buy them and sell them back and forth is mostly due to a shared mood. And those changes appear to be natural changes that arise when human beings interact with each other in a social setting. And this is the basic driver of stock prices. It's also the basic driver of lots of other human behavior. We can talk about cultural trends that social mood influences, and most importantly, macroeconomic trends. And this is why the stock market changes precede changes in the economy.
Okay, now this is a good point before we get to the first break. I want people to understand this. What fascinated me about this before was that I would watch, a chaos theory, or, the beat of a butterfly's wing changes where a typhoon goes in Asia 10 years from now kind of thing. Small changes affect a large impact in the future. Well, instead of the stock prices or stock numbers or the fundamentals of the stock market having an impact on human behavior, the argument that you're making seems to be that it's human behavior that is the primary focus that causes the stock market to change. It's kind of the other way around. And
it's 100% the other way around.
So I'm looking at, from this standpoint, is that you can see even, because I remember in previous interviews years ago, I'd ask you, I go, but what about corruption? What about bad laws? What about, he goes, yeah, that's all part of human behavior. So you're looking at a macro, just humanity as an organic system, just like the weather, just like the tides, just like the powers of the solar system. I mean, whatever. Our influence is 6 billion minds interacting in the market is what determines the market. And go ahead and extrapolate from that so we kind of get a base understanding before we go on.
Right. Well, most people would say that the whole human social system is like a 6 billion billiard balls all going around bouncing into each other, and it's semi-random, and when one hits another, the other one reacts. And therefore, it's like chaos theory where butterfly wings affect a typhoon somewhere else because small changes affect changes elsewhere. And I'm perfectly fine with that in terms of the everyday occurrences within society on an individual level, and one person affects another, and one thing might prompt someone to go take a certain action. But on the broader movements, this is not the case. You can't say, for example, that wars happen because one guy got assassinated. Those kind of events happen all the time. There's no correlation you can make between one of those events and something else. But what you can show is that these big waves of social mood, where people get into a positive mood trend for many years, make stock prices go up, make popular music more happy, get the economy in an expansion mode because people are taking more risks and getting more productive. All of that happens together. And then on the other side of the pattern, you can see that social mood is making people more conservative. What do? They sell stocks, they pull in their horns on their businesses, they have different tastes in music and entertainment. All of that is moving together. It's not simply a bunch of billiard balls. This is a larger, one-directional influence from social mood to social action. And I can sum it up for people this way. Most people would say, for example, that changes in the economy and changes in the stock market affect the social mood of people. And what I'm saying is, no, it's the social mood changes that are causing the changes in the stock market and the economy, or even peace and war.
So now we're looking into the future and using Elliott Wave theory tools, what you have available on your site and what you're advocating, we have what to look forward to.
All right. This is a fascinating thing. Back in the 1930s, when R.N. Elliott started, he labeled the progression of waves going all the way back to the American Revolution, which, by the way, coincided very closely to a major bottom in stock prices in England. So at that major low, they had an ineffectual government under King George III. They lost the colonies to a bunch of ragtag freedom fighters, and that was their bad fortune that negative social mood brought about in England at the time. And from that point started a 5-wave structure. Elliott noticed that markets move in 5 waves when going in the direction of the one larger trend, 3 waves when going against. He labeled those, and then 1835 was the top of the first big move. We had 2 depressions ending in 1859. That was the first correction, or wave 2. Wave 3 carried us all the way into 1929. Then we had the crash and the Great Depression. That was the 4th wave. He said there's another giant wave to come. In one of his essays, he said it should last to about 2012, which I think is pretty incredible. He said there's going to be plenty of setbacks along the way, bear markets, recessions. He said, but no Great Depression until about that time.
Wow, and here she comes. Well, we're going to go ahead and talk about, you guys stay tuned. You see, this is going to get interesting. What happens if there's a system out there to kind of, just takes a look back over the long term and says, we're just part of the biology of the universe. Well, we're going to talk about it. It's interesting to think about. We'll be back with Robert Prechter from ElliottWave.com in just a little bit here on Declare Your Independence.